Ada never learned how long she slept after the arena trial. Time in the facility blurred, lights that never dimmed, halls that never changed, the same metallic hum drilling the hours into sameness. When she woke the next time, her restraints were gone. Not because she was free, because they wanted her to walk. The speaker crackled overhead. E27, report to Hydrolab 2. Hydrolab, Ada's stomach tightened. The last time she passed the water sector, she'd seen that girl, W14, wired to machines, barely breathing. She sat up slowly, that phantom itch where her wound had healed prickling across her ribs. Her shirt still bore the faint stain where her blood had soaked through before her regeneration sealed the gash. She placed her hand over the mark, warm, whole, wrong but strong. The door slid open before she could gather herself fully. Vess waited, tablet in hand. Up, Vess said. Ada rose, legs unsteady, and stepped into the hallway. They walked in silence, the white walls curving subtly downward as they descended to the lower floors. Here the air grew heavier, cooler. Moisture clung to the walls, beads of condensation gathering in the seams of the metal framework. A faint sloshing sound echoed through the hall. Water. Ada's throat tightened. What's Hydrolab 2? She asked when she couldn't hold in the question any longer. A joint assessment, Vess replied. We're testing compatibility between subjects in the elemental series. Elemental? Vess cut her a sharp look, and Ada swallowed the rest. They reached a door marked with the symbol of a teardrop, crossed with a pulse line. Vess pressed her palm to the pad. The door hissed open. Hydrolab 2 was colder than the rest of the facility, almost painfully so. A mist hung near the ground, swirling around Ada's ankles. The center of the room held a circular pool of water, perfectly still, unsettlingly dark. And standing beside it was the girl, W14. She was awake now. She was around Ada's age, maybe slightly older, with medium brown skin and long black hair that fell in tangled wet ropes over her shoulders. She wore a thin facility jumpsuit that clung to her damp frame. Her eyes, dark, heavy-lidded, rimmed with shadows, flicked up as Ada entered. Fear lived there, but something else too. Recognition. Ada stepped closer. I saw you before, she whispered. The girl nodded faintly. Her voice came out soft, strained, and wrapped in an accent Ada couldn't place. They said we meet today. Ada wanted to say something comforting, something brave, something honest. What came out instead was, "Are you okay?" The girl's lips twitched in an exhausted, humorless half-smile. "No one here is okay." Handler Vess moved between them. "Subjects W14 and E27, she announced to the glass observation deck above, where several masked scientists had gathered. "Begin resonance trial." Resonance. Ada's pulse quickened. "What do we have to do?" W14's fingers curled into her palms. Her gaze flicked toward the pool. "They want us to use our abilities," she murmured. Ada stared at the water. It was black, unnaturally black, as if it wasn't water at all, but a hole carved in the earth. A shiver slid down Ada's spine. "You're water," Ada said quietly, "aren't you?" W14 nodded. "And you," the girl whispered, "are fire." Ada wished she could deny it, but the pulsing heat in her chest, faint even now, was impossible to ignore. Vess tapped her tablet. "E27, ignite." Ada's palms tingled instantly, flame rising in her throat before she even inhaled. She bit it back, forcing control. She lifted her hand. A small, lavender flame blossomed into being. The water in the pool reacted before Ada even understood what she'd done. It rippled, then shuddered. A low hum vibrated through the metal floor, rising like the sound of someone sobbing under the surface. W14 gasped, her hands flying to her temples. "Stop, stop!" Ada extinguished the flame instantly, heart pounding. "What happened?" The girl trembled, breath ragged. "When you use your power, the water hears it. It hurts." Ada stared. "I didn't mean—" "I know," W14 whispered, "but my body, it listens too. It's like a scream inside me." Ada's chest tightened. She stepped toward the girl. "We don't have to do this. We can't use our abilities on each other." Ada, not Vess, not a scientist. W14 said her name. Ada froze. "How do you know my—" "I heard it," the girl rasped, pointing upward. "When they watched you, when you were asleep. They said it over and over." Ada swallowed. "W14, Vess said sternly, step to the edge of the pool." The girl flinched but obeyed. Ada walked beside her, the air thick with cold. "Begin synchronization," Vess ordered. W14 took one step into the water, and it rose to meet her like hands. Ada jerked back. "Is it alive?" she whispered. "No," the girl said, eyes distant, "just listening." Then she did something Ada didn't expect. She sang. It wasn't a melody Ada recognized. It wasn't even fully formed, more like soft, broken notes carried on trembling breath. But the water responded. It swirled around her legs, pulling upward, forming tendrils that wrapped her arms in gentle spirals. The rippling glow beneath the surface brightened, illuminating her features from below. Her voice cracked halfway through. Ada's heart ached. She realized then W14 was crying, but her tears didn't fall. They turned to mist, rising from her cheeks like breath on a cold day. "Fascinating," one of the masked scientists murmured overhead. "Her distress amplifies hydrosymbiosis." Ada clenched her fists. "E27, Vess said, Project Flame within safe distance." "No," Ada said. Vess looked up sharply. "Repeat that?" "I won't hurt her." "This is not about injury," Vess said coolly. "This is about data." W14's song faltered. Panic flickered in her eyes. "Ada, please," she whispered, "just a little flame. If you don't, they'll—" The doors behind them slammed open. Ada's heart jumped, expecting guards. Instead, Li Chang stepped in. Two handlers flanked him, bands glowing on his arms. His eyes were wild, flicking between Ada, W14, and the pool. "No," Li said sharply, "you can't put them together. Their elements aren't stabilized." "D09, Vess said coldly. "Return to your assigned lab." Li stepped forward. The handlers grabbed his arms, but he twisted just enough to yank half free. The movement was small, but it sent a tremor beneath the skin of his neck. The dragon flickering just beneath the surface. "Do you want her to drown?" Li barked, chin jerking toward W14. "Or do you want Ada to blow the entire room?" Ada stared at him, stunned. He wasn't supposed to be here. He wasn't supposed to interfere. But he had come anyway. "Remove him," a scientist ordered. "Wait!" Ada shouted. The handlers paused. She turned to W14. "What do you need?" Ada whispered. The girl blinked up at her. Water trailed up her arms. Her lips trembled. "Don't make the flame angry," she whispered. Ada inhaled. She closed her eyes. She thought of warmth, not fire. Comfort, sunlight on skin. A candle's glow in a dark room. Something gentle. Her hand warmed. She opened her eyes. A small, soft flame, pale lavender, barely flickering, glowed in her palm. The water calmed instantly. W14 exhaled a trembling breath. "That's better," she whispered. "Much better." Ada smiled faintly, But the scientists were not pleased. Not enough output, one snapped. Increase intensity. No, Ada said. Vess's voice hardened. E27, comply. Make me, Ada muttered. Lee's head snapped toward her in warning. And then it happened. The water surged, not toward the scientists, not toward Vess, toward Ada. She gasped as tendrils of liquid coiled around her legs, climbing up her knees, her waist. It wasn't violent. It wasn't trying to hurt her. It felt like fear. W14's fear. She was losing control. Stop, Ada cried. But the water rose higher. Lee shouted something, breaking free of one handler's grip, but the second yanked him back. W14 clutched her chest, sinking to her knees at the pool's edge. I can't. Ada, I can't. Ada didn't think. She just moved. She touched the girl's hand. The moment their skin met, light exploded between them. Purple flame and blue-white water collided, but didn't cancel each other out. They wrapped around each other like ribbons, forming a spiraling column of vapor and fire that rose to the ceiling with a furious hiss. The entire room shook. The scientists scrambled back. The handlers dragged Lee away. Ada felt something inside her shift, like a door opening. And W14's voice filled her head. Not words, a feeling. Help me. Ada squeezed her hand. The flame gentled instantly. The water fell quiet. Then, like breath slowly released, the spiral dispersed. Everything stilled. Ada fell to her knees, panting. W14 collapsed beside her, shaking. Vess stared down at her tablet, stunned. Unexpected stabilization. One scientist whispered, "Are they compatible?" Another murmured, "Resonance index off the charts." Finally, the masked man's voice crackled through the intercom. Slow, deliberate. Interesting. Ada glared up at the observation window, chest heaving. "You don't own us," she rasped. But the masked man chuckled softly. "No," he said, "but we made you, and now we know two of you can operate in tandem." Ada's blood ran cold. Lee shouted from the doorway, voice raw, "Don't let them pair you. Don't let them turn you into—" The door slammed shut, cutting him off. Ada looked at W14. The girl's eyes brimmed with tears. Real ones this time. "I'm Jimena," she whispered weakly, "before they took me. My name is Jimena." Ada squeezed her hand again. "Ada," she said softly. They held onto each other as the guards approached. Two girls, fire and water, terrified, but not alone anymore. Ada did not sleep after the hydrolab incident. She lay awake on her thin mattress, staring at her dim ceiling light, replaying the moment the water had wrapped around her legs. Jimena's trembling voice, Lee shouting, the scientist's hungry murmurs, compatible, resonance, paired. Paired for what? The facility didn't build friendships, they built weapons. Ada's scar itched, phantom pain from a wound that no longer existed. She ran her fingertips over the smooth skin. Not broken, not whole either, something in between. The speaker crackled softly. E27, stand by for reassignment. Her stomach tightened. They were moving her again. Two guards arrived moments later. No Vess, no explanation. That was new, and not good. Walk, one ordered. Ada obeyed, legs stiff from anxiety. They led her down a hallway she'd never seen before, colder and darker than the others. Pipes lined the ceiling like exposed ribs. Steam hissed intermittently, fogging the air. "This isn't the training sector," Ada muttered. Neither guard responded. That made her even more nervous. They stopped at a door marked ventilation wing, restricted access. Ventilation? Why bring her here? The taller guard opened the door. Inside, Ada stepped through and realized instantly she was alone. The guards did not enter. The door slammed behind her, locking with a hydraulic hiss. Her pulse thundered. The room was long and narrow, filled with humming machinery. Vents whirred overhead, cycling air through unseen ducts. A dim emergency light cast everything in a dull red glow. "What is this?" Ada whispered. A faint shuffling sound echoed from deeper in the room. She froze. "Hello?" she called softly. Another sound, a scrape, then quiet breathing. Ada backed toward the door, palms tingling. If she needed flame, she needed control. Gentle flame, not the terrified blast that nearly knocked the hydrolab apart. "Who's there?" she tried again. A voice drifted from the shadows. "Don't scream." Ada stiffened. A figure stepped into the faint light. A boy, older than Ada, maybe 16 or 17, with pale skin and dark, messy hair that fell into his face. He wore a tattered facility uniform like hers, but his sleeves were shredded and thin, translucent filaments clung to his back like folded wings. Not feathers, not fabric, something in between. The boy's eyes reflected the red emergency light glowing faintly like embers. Not bright, not threatening, just strange. "Stay back," Ada warned, raising her hands. The boy flinched at her movement, hands lifting in surrender. "I'm not going to hurt you," he whispered. His voice was soft, careful, like someone who'd learned to speak in fear of being heard. Ada hesitated. "Who are you?" she asked. The boy swallowed, Adam's apple bobbing. "Maverick." The name hit her chest like a soft punch. Lee had mentioned a boy from his visions. Wings, darkness, a warning. Ada lowered her hand slightly. "Why am I here?" she asked him. Maverick shifted nervously, glancing at the vents overhead. "Because you're too bright," he murmured. Ada blinked. Excuse me?" He stepped closer, wings shivering faintly behind him. They weren't solid, more like flickering shadow membranes catching air that shouldn't move. "When you used your fire in Hydrolab," he said quietly, "every sensor in this building lit up. They felt it in the ventilation network." "Felt it?" Ada echoed. Maverick nodded. "They built this wing to monitor airflow, pressure changes, vibrations, sound frequencies, but also other things." His gaze drifted to her chest, where her flames usually emerged. "Energy signatures." Ada swallowed. "Fire signatures." "And resonance," he added. "Your interaction with the water girl." "Jimena. It created a feedback loop. It shook the vents." He stepped back as if afraid of what he was saying. "They think you two made something new." Ada's heart lurched. "Something new?" Maverick nodded again, wings twitching. "They want to study it, replicate it, use it." Ada felt sick. Maverick looked toward the door. "They brought you here so I could test something." Ada stiffened. "Test what?" He closed his eyes, bracing himself. "Whether I can predict what you're becoming." The air thickened. Ada took a step back. "Prophecies? Like Lee?" Maverick's eyes snapped open, startled. "Lee has it too." Ada nodded cautiously. Maverick dragged a trembling hand down his face. "Then it's worse than I thought." "What is?" Ada demanded. He pointed upward. "The choir's project. They call it the Convergence. It's the reason they stole children from all over the world. They're not just making cryptids. They're trying to make a set." Ada blinked. "A set?" Maverick nodded. 4 elements, 4 archetypes, 4 vessels. Fire and water, earth and air, vision and rebirth. It's all threads in one design. Ada felt blood drain from her face. 4, she whispered. I dreamed it. Fire, water, dragon, wings in darkness. Maverick stared at her, breath catching. You saw them too. Ada nodded. Then the convergence is already happening, he murmured, horrified. Before Ada could ask, the vents overhead began to vibrate. A low hum pulsed through the room. Maverick froze. They're watching. They activated the sensory array. Ada looked up, panic rising. Why now? They want data, he said. They want to see how we react to each other. How close we can get before... He didn't finish, because the door suddenly unlocked. Ada jumped, flames sparking in her palm. 2 guards stepped in, but behind them... Vess. Her eyes scanned the scene coldly. Good. Proximity test successful. Maverick stiffened. Test? Vess typed something on her tablet. Your vitals spike when you approach E27. Her flame output increases. Resonance potential confirmed. Ada didn't understand, but she didn't like any of it. Why us? She demanded. Vess didn't look up. You 4 were selected for compatibility. You'll understand when you're older. We're not staying that long, Ada snapped. Vess paused mid-keystroke, raised her eyes, smiled without warmth. You will. Ada's flame flared involuntarily. Maverick stumbled back, wings twitching. Stop, he whispered urgently. You'll trigger... It was too late. A shockwave tremored through the room, rattling the vents. Ada's flame exploded brighter, reacting to her fear. Maverick's wings unfurled in a burst of shadow and light. Sensors flashed overhead, alarms blared. Vess shouted something, but the sound drowned in the roar of air cycling through the ducts at impossible speed. Maverick lunged toward Ada, not to attack, but to shield her, as the vents burst open above them. A gale of cold air slammed down like a fist. Ada screamed. Her flame collapsed. Darkness swallowed the room. She heard guards yelling, Maverick's wings snapping against metal, Vess retreating, scientists barking orders. Then a hand grabbed hers. Not rough, not a guard. Maverick, Ada gasped. Yes, he whispered. Come on. He pulled her into one of the open vents. Ada scrambled inside, just as the door burst open, and Vess shouted, Seal the ventilation system, now! The vent slammed shut behind them. Ada and Maverick crawled deeper into the darkness, hearts pounding in sync. They didn't stop until the facility sounded far away. In the narrow metal tunnel, Maverick whispered, You need to find Lee and Jimena. They're going to separate you all now that they know what you are. Ada clutched his hand tightly. And what are we? She whispered. Maverick's answer was barely a breath. Dangerous. The vent was barely big enough for one person, let alone 2. Metal scraped Ada's knees and elbows with every shuffle forward. The air smelled like dust, rust, and something chemical. Faint traces of the facility's constant cleaning routines funneled up through hidden filters. Maverick moved ahead of her, almost silent despite the tight space. His strange wings were folded so closely they looked like shadows glued to his back. How do you even fit in here? Ada whispered. Practice, he murmured back. They stick me in the vents all the time. Natural environment and all that. Like you're part of the ventilation system. Like I'm a roach, he said dryly. Ada almost laughed. Almost. They crawled for what felt like forever, the hum of the facility vibrating through the metal around them. Grates appeared at intervals, some looking down into hallways Ada recognized, others revealing labs she'd never seen. At one grate, voices drifted up, clearer than the muffled echo they'd heard before. Maverick held up a hand. Ada froze. They lay side by side at the grate, peering through narrow slits into a meeting room below. A central table glowed with a projected layout of the facility. Several masked scientists stood around it, along with Vess and two other handlers Ada didn't know. One of the scientists tapped part of the projection. "The incident in Hydrolab 2 confirms it," he said. "E27 and W14 create a resonance field when in close contact. We saw secondary effects in the ventilation wing. D09's proximity amplified it." A second scientist flicked her fingers through the projection. 4 glowing points appeared in different sectors of the map. 4. Ada's breath caught in her throat. "E series, W series, D series, M series," the woman said. "Fire, water, beast, seer." The choir's charts predicted this configuration years ago. As the children age, their compatibility increases. Vess's jaw tightened. Age also increases rebellion. "Rebellion can be redirected," the woman said. "Fear can be shaped, loyalty engineered." "Not in all of them," Vess replied. "Jimena refuses high-output commands. Li Qiang has resisted every attempt at force transformation. Ada questions every order. Maverick—" Everyone in the room glanced toward the ceiling for a heartbeat. Maverick tensed beside Ada, every muscle going still. Then the first scientist waved it off. "Maverick's visions are unreliable without structured prompting. He won't act on his own." Ada almost snorted. "You really don't know him at all." "Regardless," another researcher cut in, "the convergence timeline is tightening. The board is impatient. They didn't fund 10 years of research for a handful of malfunctioning cryptids." "Proposal?" Vess asked. The projection shifted again. 4 new lines connected the glowing points. "Separate them physically," the scientist said, "but synchronize their conditioning. More joint simulations, carefully controlled. Push their thresholds. Let them experience the edge of death, then bring them back. We need absolute proof their abilities won't fail in the field." Ada's skin crawled. "Particularly regeneration," the woman added. "The Eclipse Phoenix is our most promising candidate for recursive survival trials." Ada didn't know what recursive survival trials were. She understood enough to hate the sound of it. "D09?" Vess asked. "Combat," came the answer. "Real stakes. If he won't transform under our orders, we'll force him to defend himself." "And W14?" "Submersion stress, increased duration and emotional triggers. Her voice is the key. We need her song under command." Jimena's face flashed in Ada's mind, eyes wide over that dark water. "And M series?" Vess asked quietly. They all hesitated. Finally, the woman said, "Lock him down. Use his visions only when we ask for them. No more free roaming in the vents." Maverick's hand tightened around the grate until his knuckles went white. "They're going to clip my wings," he whispered. Ada's heart pounded. "We should go," she whispered back. "Not yet," Maverick murmured. "Look." The projection expanded, numbers and codes blooming along the corridors. Slowly, like a flower unfolding, the entire facility layout came into view. Cell blocks, training arenas, labs, hydrolabs, a huge dark square near the bottom labeled sub-level Omega, and near the very top. Ada squinted, a small rectangle, faint, almost forgotten, marked with a tiny symbol of a circle split in half. "Emergency access." One handler read off the label, confused. "We don't use that." "Old architecture," another replied dismissively. "From when this place was a bunker. The choir boarded it up when they took over. No entry point anymore." "But the system still thinks it's there," Vess noted. "The system is out of date," the scientist said. "Focus on what actually matters." The projection zoomed back in on the lower floors. But Ada kept her eyes locked on that tiny overlooked rectangle. Emergency access. Her heart beat faster for a new reason. A way out. Maybe. Someday. Now we go, Maverick whispered. Come on. They crawled away from the grate, carefully, making sure not to rattle it. After a few minutes moving in silence, Ada hissed under her breath. You saw that before, didn't you? The emergency route? He whispered back. Bits and pieces, in dreams. But the map? That's the clearest I've ever seen it. We have to remember it, Ada said. Every hall, every turn. That's a way up, right? To the surface. Probably, he said, or to a locked door and a dozen guns. Either way, Ada said, it's not down. Down is always worse. He gave a humorless little huff. Fair. They reached a junction in the ductwork where the tunnel split in 3 directions. Maverick paused. Left goes near the water sector. Middle goes over combat. Right is back toward containment. Which way? Jimena, Ada said immediately. And Lee. Maverick glanced at her. We can't save anyone right now. We're just spying. I know, Ada said, but if they're about to hurt them, I want to know how. He sighed. Water first, then combat. Then we get you back before they notice you're missing and flood the whole vent system with knockout gas. Ada's stomach twisted. They can do that? Yeah. He started down the left tunnel. Ask me how I know sometime. They peered down into Hydrolab 1 this time, not 2. Smaller pool, more monitors, more straps. Jimena sat on a metal chair on the platform, arms tied to the rests, ankles bound to the legs. Her hair was wet again, hanging in heavy strands, dripping onto the floor. Electrodes clung to the sides of her neck. Her eyes were shut. A handler stood beside her, holding a device that looked like a remote. Begin phase 3, a voice said over the lab intercom. The handler pressed a button. Jimena's whole body flinched. Ada's nails dug into the vent grate. What are they doing? Shock therapy, Maverick whispered tightly. Low level, but still. The intercom voice continued. Subject W14, initiate song. Jimena's eyes fluttered open, her lips parted. The first note came out hoarse. Ada felt it in her teeth, soft, broken, but even here in the vent the sound curled around her like mist. The water in the pool stirred, drawn toward it like metal to a magnet. Focus on target, the voice commanded. A mannequin rose from the middle of the pool, just a human-shaped dummy made of rubber and plastic, wearing a plain grey uniform. Direct emotional resonance, the calm voice said. Imagine the target as the one who took you. Jimena's face crumpled. Stop, Ada whispered. Don't listen to them. But Jimena's song swelled. Sadness bled into it. Loss. Anger. The water surged upward, enveloping the mannequin in swirling tendrils. Maverick grimaced. They're training her to weaponize grief. The mannequin's head vanished beneath a rushing column of water. Bubbles burbled up violently, then ceased. Circulation ceased, someone noted clinically. Duration, 8 seconds. Efficient. Jimena's song fractured. She sucked in a ragged breath, tears mixing with drops from her hair. The handler clicked the remote again, her shoulders spasmed. Reinforce association, the intercom voice said. Your song saves people if you obey. Hurts them if you resist. Again. Ada couldn't watch. She squeezed her eyes shut, only the sound of Jimena's shaking voice and the rush of water filling the vent like a nightmare. Maverick touched her wrist lightly, a silent enough. They crawled away. I'm going to burn that remote, Ada muttered through clenched teeth. One day, Maverick said, not disagreeing. The combat sector was louder. Metal clanged. Something roared, definitely not human but not fully animal either. The vent above the main arena vibrated with the force of impacts. Careful not to rattle the grate, they peered through. Li Qiang stood in the middle of the arena in a torn jumpsuit, chest heaving, knuckles bleeding. The bands on his arms glowed bright blue, runes flickering fast. Across from him lumbered a heavy training unit, twice the size of the dummies Ada had faced. This one wasn't on tracks. It moved on thick metal legs, clawed feet gouging the floor. Its arms ended in blunt, battering rams instead of weapons. A cage on the far wall held 3 small, quivering shapes. Other subjects. Younger than Ada, 1 boy, 2 girls. Their eyes were wide, faces pale as they watched. "You will transform," a scientist's voice boomed over the intercom, "or they will be injured." Li spit blood onto the floor. "Go to hell," he rasped. The training unit lunged. Li leapt aside, but not fast enough. One massive fist clipped his shoulder, sending him spinning. He hit the floor hard, air whooshing out of his lungs. Ada gasped. Her fingers flared with flame. Maverick grabbed her wrist. "Don't. They're going to kill him." "They want him alive," Maverick said harshly. "They just want him scared." The training unit pivoted toward the cage. The kids inside shrank back, hugging each other. "Last chance, D09, the voice said. "Manifest full draconic form, or watch them suffer." "Don't fall for it," Ada whispered desperately. "Li, don't." From this angle, she could see his face clearly. Blood trickled from his split lip. Sweat plastered his hair to his forehead. His eyes flicked from the machine to the cage. Rage burned there, and something else. Guilt. He pushed himself upright, bracing his hands on his knees. Then he inhaled. Deep, long, the air in the arena seemed to thicken. The glow from his armbands surged. The runes brightened, lines of light crawling up his veins like climbing ivy. His spine arched unnaturally, bones cracked, joints popping under the pressure. Ada's breath hitched. "Stop, stop, stop." Maverick's grip tightened, wings pressed flat to the vent. Li threw his head back and shouted. The sound wasn't fully human. Then the change rolled through him like a wave. Scales shimmered across his arms, metallic in the bright lights. His eyes slit into reptilian pupils. His teeth sharpened. A long, segmented tail burst from his lower back, slamming into the floor with enough force to crack it. He didn't fully become a dragon, not like in Ada's visions. But he became something between boy and beast. Broad shoulders, corded muscles, claws where fingernails had been. Draconic partial manifestation successful, someone crowed over the intercom. The training unit charged. This time, Li met it head-on. He slammed into the machine with a roar, claws digging into metal. Sparks flew. The unit swung massive fists. Li ducked, tail whipping around its legs. With a heave, he toppled it onto its back. The kids in the cage cried out, half in fear, half in awe. Li planted a foot on the machine's chest and drove his claws into its head. With a screech of tearing metal, he ripped its core free. Lights inside it went dark. Silence fell. "Combat threshold achieved," the scientist said calmly. "Note behavioral fluidity under emotional duress." Li stood over the useless machine, chest heaving, scales shimmering. Then he turned toward the observation window. Even from the vents, Ada could see the hatred burning in his eyes. He knew they were watching. He wanted them to see. "Take the children back to their cells," the voice ordered, "and sedate D09 before he fixes that glare on anyone else." Ada watched as guards flooded the arena. Electroshock batons crackled. Li snarled, but he didn't resist when they jabbed him. His body spasmed. Scaled skin flickered back to human. He crumpled to his knees, then to the floor. Ada bit her lip so hard she tasted blood. "We have to do something," she whispered. Maverick stared down, eyes hollow. "We are doing something. We're learning where to hit them." Ada looked at him sharply. "You sound like Lee," she said. "Lee sounds like someone who's tired of being a test," Maverick replied. "So do you. So do I." He pulled away from the grate. "We need to get you back," he said. "If they find you missing." "Knockout gas," Ada muttered. "Yeah." He started down the right-hand vent, back towards Solitary. Ada crawled after him, thoughts racing. Fire, water, dragon, wings, all pushed, all bending, not broken. Yet, they emerged into an empty service corridor behind the containment block. A narrow maintenance hatch led from the vent to the floor. Maverick dropped down first, landing lightly despite the height. He held his arms out. "Come on." Ada slid out feet first, dangling, then let go. He caught her by the waist, steadying her until her sneakers met the floor. His hands were warm. His touch trembled. "Now what?" Ada whispered. "Now you go back to your room and pretend you never left," he said. "And I disappear before they decide to keep me in a box." She hesitated. "You could come with me," she offered weakly. He shook his head. "They know I slip into the vent sometimes. They built me for it. If I vanish completely, they'll turn every sensor in this place inside out. Better for me to show up where they expect. Take a scolding. Pretend I got lost." Ada hated how logical that was. "Wait," she blurted, "before you go, the emergency access. Can you find a way to map it? Draw it for me." His lips quirked. "You think they give us paper and pencils?" "Then remember it," she said fiercely. "Like one of your visions. Hold it in your head until we can share it with Lee and Jimena." He studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded. "I will if you will," he said. "Every time you use your fire, you're going to see this place, feel it, learn it. One day, we'll walk those halls with our own feet, not as subjects, as problems they can't control." Ada's chest tightened with a strange mix of fear and hope. "Deal," she whispered. He stepped back, wings flickering. "And Ada," he said, "yeah?" "When your fire gets too big," he murmured, "when it scares you, remember something." She waited. "You're not just a weapon they made," he said softly. "You're a story you're still writing." Then he slipped away down the corridor, melting into shadow like he'd never been there. Ada didn't make it all the way back to her room before the facility noticed. She rounded a corner and nearly collided with handler Vess. They both froze. Vess's eyes dropped to Ada's hands. Her palms still glowed faintly violet. "Out of your room without escort," Vess said. "Interesting." Ada scrambled for a lie. "I was taken for reassignment." "By whom?" Vess cut in. Ada's mouth went dry. She realized, too late, that the truth, that guards had brought her to the ventilation wing, didn't help. It only raised more questions. Vess studied her for a long, quiet moment. Then she tapped her tablet. "E27, she said, voice flat. "You will report to Thermal Lab 3, immediately." Ada swallowed. "Why?" "To calibrate your output," Vess replied. "You've been overactive today." Ada's scar prickled. Flames stirred under her skin like restless birds. She felt cornered, trapped. Something inside her frayed. As Vess turned to lead the way, Ada's breath shortened. The hallway seemed to shrink. The lights buzzed louder. Every step felt wrong. "They're going to cut you open," a panicked voice in her head screamed. "They're going to see how far they can push you before you break." Her fingers trembled. Heat surged. She tried to clamp down on it, tried to picture candles, warmth, comfort. But the images wouldn't hold. Instead, she saw Jimena's tears, Lee's scales, Maverick's wings folding in fear. Her fire responded to those, violently. "Ada," Vess said sharply, noticing the shimmer around her hands. "Control yourself." "I'm trying," Ada gasped. The flame burst out anyway. Not the soft lavender she'd learned to coax. Not even the rich violet of battle. This was white violet, so bright it was nearly colorless, edged in razor-thin bands of neon purple. It exploded from her chest and palms in a sudden blinding flare. The air detonated. The hallway buckled, lights shattered, raining sparks. The floor heaved, tiles cracking under the force. Vess was thrown backward into the wall, tablet flying from her grip. Alarm screamed. Ada stumbled, vision full of streaking afterimages. For a moment she couldn't see anything but light. Her ears rang. The flame vanished as quickly as it had appeared. Smoke curled from the walls where scorch marks bloomed in spiderweb patterns. The air smelled like ozone and burned plastic. Vess groaned, pushing herself up on one elbow. Blood trickled from a cut at her hairline. She stared at Ada with something Ada hadn't seen in her eyes before. Not annoyance. Not even anger. Fear. "Phoenix surge," Vess whispered. "Early onset." Ada's heart hammered. "What? What did I do?" she gasped. "You destabilized half this corridor," Vess said hoarsely, dragging herself upright. "If you'd been in a lab full of flammable agents, you might have destroyed an entire wing." Ada's throat closed. Guards rounded the corner, weapons raised, then halted at the sight of the damage. "Stand down," Vess snapped, regaining her composure in a heartbeat. She lost control. "I will handle it." She turned back to Ada, eyes hard again, but shot through with tension. "From now on," Vess said, "you will not walk these halls unescorted. You will not use your fire outside designated spaces, and you will not be left alone with any other subject without supervision. Do you understand?" Ada wanted to say no. Her lips moved on their own. "Yes." Vess nodded once. "Good, because if you surge like that again in the wrong place..." She glanced around at the cracked floor, the ruined lights. "The choir may decide you're too unstable to continue. And the board does not waste resources on unstable assets." Ada heard the unsaid words. They euthanized them. Fear knifed through her. She swallowed it down. "I'll control it," she said quietly. "I'll learn." "You'd better," Vess said. As the guards escorted Ada back to her room, she walked through her own destruction. People whispered as they passed, handlers, techs, lesser scientists. "E27 did this. First surge? She's too young. 10 years of work, and they still can't keep them contained." Ada kept her eyes forward, her hands by her sides, her fire coiled in her chest, scared, wild, and stronger than ever. Back in her room, the door sealed. Ada leaned against it, sliding down until she sat on the floor. Her palm tingled. She opened her hand. A tiny flame rose up. Soft, lavender, obedient. "You're not going to kill me," she whispered to it. "You're going to get me out." The flame danced, brightening just a little. "And you're going to get them out too," she added. "Lee, Jimena, Maverick, all the kids in cages, all the ones they think are just data." She closed her fingers around the light. In the darkness of her fist, it didn't die. It burned hotter,